The ship floated dead in space like a metal grave. It had been drifting for over 300 years, silent and cold against the black void. The hull bore the faded letters U.S. Meridian, though few beings in the galaxy could read the ancient human script anymore. Commander Thexville clicked his mandibles together as he studied the readings on his scanner. The insectoid alien stood 8 feet tall, his dark green shell gleaming under the bridge lights of his salvage vessel. His 4 eyes focused on the data streaming across his screen. "War Leader, we have found something unusual," he said to his second-in-command. "This vessel shows signs of advanced technology. It's much more advanced than the primitive humans should have possessed." War Leader Gricksmith scuttled over on his 6 legs. His scarred shell told the story of many battles fought. For the Zerothian Collective, humans were weak creatures who destroyed themselves with their own wars. What could they possibly have that interests us? Thexville pointed at the energy readings. "The ship still has power after all these centuries. The reactor design is unknown to our science database, and there are life signs." This made Gricksmith's antennae twitch with interest. Life signs? After 300 years? One signature, deep in the ship's interior. The readings are ... strange. The Zerothian boarding party cut through the Meridian's airlock with plasma torches. Their heavy boots clanked against the metal deck as they moved through corridors filled with floating debris. Emergency lighting cast eerie red shadows on the walls. Dr. Vexstar followed behind the soldiers, his scientific equipment beeping and clicking as he took readings. Unlike the warriors, he was smaller and more delicate, bred for research rather than combat. His pale yellow shell marked him as a member of the scholar caste. "Fascinating," he whispered, as they passed through what had once been the ship's medical bay. "The humans were more advanced than our historical records suggest. Look at these surgical instruments. Precision is remarkable." The soldiers paid no attention to the doctor's excitement. They had seen the ruins of human colonies before. Every world the collective had visited told the same story. The humans had fought each other until nothing remained but radioactive wastelands and empty cities. They found the Cryo Bay in the ship's deepest section. The room was large and filled with dozens of empty pods. Most had been opened long ago, their occupants either awakened or dead. But one pod in the center of the room still hummed with power. Frost covered the transparent aluminum viewing panel. They could see the shape of a human inside. The figure was tall and muscular, dressed in what appeared to be a military uniform. Various tubes and wires connected to his body, feeding nutrients and maintaining his suspended state. Dr. Vexstar rushed forward with his scanners, his excitement overriding his usual caution. "Incredible. The preservation is perfect. The specimen has been in suspended animation for exactly 314 years. Specimen," Gricksmith laughed, a harsh clicking sound. "It is just another dead human. Wake it up so we can study it, then dispose of it. But War Leader, the readings are most unusual. This human's biological markers are unlike anything in our databases. His muscle density is 3 times normal. His bone structure has been artificially strengthened, and his brain patterns." The doctor paused, studying his instruments. These brain patterns suggest extensive neural modification. Dexville joined them at the pod. "Modified how?" "Unknown. But whoever did this work possessed technology far beyond what we believed humans capable of. This is not natural evolution. This is deliberate enhancement." The commander made his decision. "Wake him. If he provides useful information about human military capabilities, the High Command will reward us. If not, we lose nothing." Dr. Vexstar began the revival process. The pod systems responded to his commands, slowly warming the interior and adjusting the chemical mixture, keeping the human alive. It would take several hours for the process to complete safely. While they waited, the boarding party explored the rest of the ship. They found records in the computer system, though most were corrupted or encrypted. What they could read painted a different picture of humanity than their official histories suggested. The Meridian had been a deep space reconnaissance vessel. Launched in the year 2087, its mission was to explore the outer reaches of human space and establish contact with alien civilizations. The crew manifest listed 237 people, all volunteers for a journey that would take them far from Earth. But something had gone wrong. The ship's log spoke of a mysterious attack that killed most of the crew. The survivors had made desperate preparations before the ship lost power and began drifting. One entry, dated just before the final log, mentioned something called Project Prometheus. "What is Project Prometheus?" Vexful asked Dr. Vexstar. The scientist looked up from his instruments. "Unknown, but this human was part of it. It's a surgical. Scars on his body matched the enhancement patterns described in the corrupted files. Someone took a normal human soldier and turned him into something else." Alarms began sounding from the cryopod. The revival process was accelerating on its own, the systems responding to programs the Zorathians did not understand. The human inside began to move, his enhanced metabolism burning through the chemicals meant to keep him sedentary. "Should we abort the process?" asked one of the soldiers. "Too late," Dr. Vexstar replied. "His body is rejecting the suspension drugs. He will wake within minutes." The human's eyes opened. They were bright blue, alert and focused, despite having been unconscious for over 3 centuries. He looked around, the pod's interior calmly, showing none of the confusion or panic they expected from someone awakening after so long. The pod's lid hissed open. The human sat up slowly, removing the breathing apparatus from his face. He was tall, probably 6.5 feet, with short brown hair and the lean build of a professional soldier. Scars crisscrossed his arms and chest, evidence of the surgical procedures that had changed him. "Where am I?" he asked, in perfect standard Galactic, the common language of the collective. This surprised the Zorathians, who had expected him to speak only the dead human tongue. Dr. Vexstar stepped forward, his translator device ready. "You are aboard your vessel, the Meridian. We are representatives of the Zorothian collective. You have been in suspended animation for over 300 years. The human processed this information without visible emotion. 300 years? Then the mission failed." "What mission?" Exfeld demanded. "I'm Lieutenant Colonel Jake Morrison, Earth Defense Force, Special Operations Division. Serial number 7749 Delta 6. Was part of a deep space reconnaissance mission to establish first contact protocols with alien civilizations." He looked at each of the Zorathians in turn. "Assume you are those aliens." His calm manner unsettled the warriors. They had expected fear, confusion, or aggression. Instead, he spoke like a soldier making a routine report. "The human homeworld no longer exists," Grixmuth said harshly. "Your species destroyed itself in nuclear wars. You are the last of your kind." Something flickered in Jake's eyes, but his expression remained neutral. "I see, and you represent the dominant power in this region of space." "We represent the dominant power in all of space," the war leader boasted, the Zorthian collective. "Rules over 47 star systems and 12 client species. We are the masters of this galaxy." Jake nodded as if filing away this information. "And I formally request asylum and offer my services to your government. I have nothing left to return to." Dr. Vexstar studied his readings. Carefully, the human's vital signs were steady, his brain patterns normal for someone who had just awakened from centuries of sleep. But something bothered the scientist. The readings were too normal. After such an ordeal, the human should be showing signs of stress, confusion, or physical weakness. Instead, Jake Morrison appeared completely in control. "We will transport you to our research facility," Thexfeld decided. "There you will be studied and questioned about human military capabilities." "Of course," Jake replied. "I understand you need to verify I pose no threat to your people." As the Zorathians prepared to transfer him to their ship, none of them noticed the slight smile that crossed Jake's face. He had been awake for less than an hour, but he had already learned everything he needed to know about his captors. They thought they had found a harmless relic of a dead civilization. They had no idea what they had really awakened. The Zorothian battlecruiser Devastation's Edge was massive. Jake Morrison had seen many warships during his time with Earth Defense Force, but nothing compared to this. The vessel stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, bristling with weapons that could destroy entire cities. Jake walked between 2 armed guards, down a corridor lined with metal plates. His hands were bound with energy shackles that would deliver a painful shock if he tried to break free. At least, that was what the Zorathians believed. Jake had already analyzed the restraints and found 3 different ways to disable them without triggering the alarm systems. The guards led him to what they called a detention cell. The room was small, perhaps 3 meters by 4 meters, with a single sleeping platform and basic sanitation facilities. The walls were made of reinforced durasteel, thick enough to contain the strongest known species in the galaxy, War Leader. Gricksmith stood outside the cell as Jake was pushed inside. The scarred alien clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. This cell has held the most dangerous criminals in collective space. Pirates, assassins, even a rogue Kethver warlord who could bend steel with his bare hands. None have ever escaped. Jake looked around the cell calmly, his enhanced vision cataloging every detail. The energy barrier that served as a door operated on a rotating frequency pattern. The ventilation system connected to the main ship's life support. The walls had stress points where the metal plates joined together. Within 30 seconds, he had identified 4 separate escape routes. "Very secure," he said politely. "I appreciate the precautions. After 300 years in cryo sleep, I would not want to accidentally harm anyone due to disorientation." This response puzzled Gricksmoth. Most prisoners either begged for mercy or made threats. The human did neither, simply sat on the sleeping platform and waited patiently for whatever came next. Dr. Vexstar arrived an hour later with his medical equipment. The scientist was excited about the opportunity to study a living human, especially one with obvious genetic modifications. He had received permission from Commander Thexvel to run a full series of tests. "I will need to examine you thoroughly," the doctor explained as he set up his scanners. "Your species is extinct, making you invaluable for scientific research. The High Command is very interested in learning about human military enhancements." Jake nodded agreeably. "I understand completely. I am curious about the modifications myself. The procedures were classified above my security level." As Dr. Vexstar began his scans, Jake submitted passively to every test. But his enhanced mind was working constantly, analyzing every piece of equipment the doctor used. The Zorothian medical scanners operated on principles similar to human technology, but with several interesting improvements. More importantly, each scan taught Jake something new about Zorothian biology. Their exoskeletons were strong, but had weak points at the joints. Their nervous systems operated at a different frequency than human nerves, making them vulnerable to certain types of electrical interference. Their eyes could see into the ultraviolet spectrum but had trouble with rapid movement tracking. "Remarkable," Dr. Vexstar muttered as he studied the readings. "Your bone density is nearly 3 times normal human baseline. Your muscle fibers have been completely restructured. And your brain, ... double quotes." He paused, running the scan again. "Your brain shows signs of artificial neural pathways. Someone built new connections in your mind. Built them for what purpose?" Asked with apparent curiosity, "Unknown. But the modifications are extensive. Your reaction time should be at least 50% faster than a normal human. Your physical strength has been increased dramatically, and your memory capacity." The doctor's voice trailed off as he stared at his instruments. "What about my memory?" "According to these readings, you should be able to remember every detail of everything you experience. Perfect recall, we call it. Very rare among organic species." Jake pretended to be surprised by this information, though he had been using his enhanced memory constantly since awakening. Every guard rotation, every conversation, every structural detail of the ship was being cataloged and analyzed by his modified brain. During the 3 days of medical testing, Jake learned about the current state of the galaxy. Dr. Vexstar was talkative, eager to share information with someone he saw as a harmless research subject. The Zorathian collective ruled through fear and overwhelming military force. They had conquered 47 star systems over the past 2 centuries, enslaving entire species and stripping their worlds of resources. Any civilization that resisted was bombed into submission from orbit. Humans, according to Zorathian records, had been discovered 150 years ago. But instead of a thriving civilization, the collective found only dead worlds and ruined cities. The official history claimed that humans had destroyed themselves in a series of nuclear wars, making them a cautionary tale about the dangers of primitive aggression. Jake listened to these stories without comment,
But his enhanced
mind was putting together a different picture. The dates did not match what he remembered from before his cryo sleep. The described destruction patterns were inconsistent with human military doctrine. Someone had rewritten history to hide the truth about what had really happened to his species. On the fourth day, Commander HFY visited the detention level. The alien commander was pleased with the information Dr. Vexstar had gathered about human enhancement techniques. The High Command was very interested in possibly recreating these modifications for their own soldiers. "You have been most cooperative," HFY told Jake. "Dr. Vexstar speaks highly of your willingness to help with our research." "I have nothing to hide," Jake replied. "If my cooperation helps advance scientific knowledge, then some good comes from the tragedy of my species. Extinction. Indeed, we are approaching Corvax's Prime, our main research facility. There more detailed studies will be conducted. You will have the opportunity to contribute greatly to collective science." Jake bowed his head respectfully. "I am honored to serve in whatever capacity you deem appropriate." What Jake did not tell the commander was that he had spent the past 4 days memorizing every detail of the ship's structure. His enhanced hearing could detect conversations 3 decks away. His modified vision could read computer displays. From across a room, his perfect memory had recorded the location of every weapon system, every security checkpoint, every weakness in the vessel's design. He also knew about the final conquest. Late-night conversations between officers had revealed the collective's ultimate plan. They intended to launch a massive campaign to conquer the last free worlds in the galaxy. Billions of beings would be enslaved or killed in the largest military operation in galactic history. But Jake kept this knowledge hidden behind a mask of humble cooperation. To his captors, he appeared to be exactly what they expected, a relic from a dead civilization, grateful for their mercy and eager to help. However, Dr. Vexstar continued his daily examinations, growing more excited with each new discovery. The human enhancement techniques were far more sophisticated than anything in collective science. If they could understand and replicate the process, it would give them a tremendous military advantage. "Your creators were geniuses," the doctor told Jake during one session. "These modifications push the boundaries of what organic life can achieve. You are essentially a perfect soldier." "Perfect soldiers need perfect causes," Jake replied quietly. "Without Earth to defend, I am just a man out of time." The doctor nodded sympathetically. "Perhaps you will find a new purpose serving the collective. We appreciate those who contribute to the greater good of galactic civilization." As Corvax's Prime appeared on the ship's view screens, Jake felt his enhanced systems beginning to respond to increasing stress hormones. His body was preparing itself for action, though he showed no outward signs of change. The research facility that awaited him would provide new opportunities to gather intelligence. More importantly, it would bring him closer to the collectives. Leadership and their most sensitive military secrets. Jake Morrison had spent 4 days playing the role of a grateful prisoner. Soon, it would be time to remind the galaxy why humans had once been feared as warriors. The Zorathians thought they had captured a harmless relic. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The research facility on Corvax's Prime rose from the planet's surface like a metal mountain. Jake Morrison studied it through the transport shuttle's viewport as they descended through the thick atmosphere. The building was massive, easily the size of a small city. Hundreds of levels extending both above and below ground. Dr. Vexstar sat across from Jake, practically vibrating with excitement. "The Corvax's facility is the most advanced research center in the galaxy," he explained. "We study everything here. Alien biology, weapons technology, planetary engineering. You will be our most important subject." Jake nodded politely. I am honored to contribute to such important work." 2 heavily armed guards escorted Jake from the shuttle to the facility's interior. The corridors were filled with busy scientists and technicians from dozens of different species. Most were slaves, Jake realized, forced to work for their Zerothian masters. Their body language told stories of fear and resignation. The laboratory where they took Jake was enormous. Banks of computers lined the walls, connected to scanning equipment that looked powerful enough to analyze matter at the atomic level. Surgical tables gleamed under bright lights. Tanks filled with strange liquids held specimens from across the galaxy.
Oh.
"Welcome to Laboratory 7, Dr. Vexstar announced proudly. "This is where we conduct our most sensitive biological research. Everything we discover here helps the collective understand and control alien species." Jake was strapped to an examination table in the center of the room. The restraints were much stronger than the ones on the ship, designed to hold beings with superhuman strength. Energy fields created additional barriers around the table, crackling with enough power to kill most life forms. But Jake's enhanced senses were already analyzing the equipment around him. His modified brain processed electromagnetic frequencies, power flow patterns, and structural weak points faster than any computer. Within minutes, he understood exactly how every machine in the laboratory operated. Dr. Vexstar began with simple scans, building up to more invasive procedures. "We will start with basic cellular analysis," he explained to his assistants, then moved to neural mapping. "The High Command wants a complete understanding of human enhancement techniques." The first few hours passed quietly. Jake submitted every test without complaint, answering questions about human society and military organization. But he was careful to give only information that was already outdated or useless. His enhanced memory allowed him to craft believable lies while keeping track of every detail. "Fascinating," Dr. Vexstar murmured as he studied the results. "Your cellular regeneration rate is incredible. These modifications should allow you to heal from injuries that would kill normal humans, and your neural pathways." He paused, frowning. At his readings, "What is wrong?" asked his chief assistant, a thin Zerothian named Kextal. "The neural patterns are more complex than I thought. Look at these connections in his brainstem. They appear to be artificial, but they are integrated so completely with his natural nervous system that I cannot tell where one ends and the other begins." Jake listened to their discussion while pretending to rest. His enhanced hearing picked up conversations from other parts of the laboratory. Scientists in nearby rooms were discussing weapons tests, slave breeding programs, and something called the Extinction Protocol. The Extinction Protocol seemed to be the collective's ultimate weapon. From what Jake could overhear, it was a network of planet-killer devices hidden throughout the galaxy. If any world tried to rebel against Zorothian rule, the protocol could sterilize entire star systems within hours. "Now for the deep neural scan," Dr. Vexstar announced. "This procedure will map every connection in your brain. It may cause some discomfort, but the knowledge we gain will be invaluable." A massive scanning device descended from the ceiling. It looked like a metal helmet covered in sensors and projector arrays. Jake recognized the technology immediately. It was similar to the neural interface systems humans had developed for their most advanced computers. "This machine can read thoughts directly from brain tissue," Dr. Vexstar explained. "We use it to extract information from uncooperative subjects. In your case, it will help us understand how your enhancements function." The scanner locked into place around Jake's head. Immediately he felt probing energy trying to penetrate his thoughts. But his modified brain had defenses the Zorthians did not know about. Neural firewalls activated automatically, protecting his most sensitive memories and knowledge. Dr. Vexstar activated the deep scan mode. The machine's power output increased dramatically, sending painful jolts through Jake's nervous system. Instead of revealing his secrets, the scanner began to overload. Jake's enhanced neural pathways were generating feedback that the machine could not handle. Warning alarms began sounding throughout the laboratory. Computer displays showed error messages in a dozen different languages. The scanning device sparked and smoked as its circuits burned out from the overload. "Shut it down," Dr. Vexstar shouted, but it was too late. The scanner exploded in a shower of sparks and metal fragments. The blast destroyed several nearby computers and started small fires throughout the laboratory. Emergency sprinkler systems activated, filling the room with foam and smoke. In the chaos that followed, something fundamental changed in Jake Morrison. The neural scanner's overload had triggered systems in his brain that had been dormant since his cryo sleep. Memories flooded back, not just his own memories, but the downloaded experiences of dozens of other enhanced soldiers. He remembered Project Prometheus now. Earth's last desperate attempt to create super soldiers capable of fighting impossible odds. They had taken volunteers from the military's elite units and rebuilt them from the ground up. Enhanced strength, perfect reflexes, adaptive intelligence, and combat protocols that turned ordinary humans into living weapons. Jake also remembered the truth about humanity's fate. The Zerothians had not found empty human worlds destroyed by civil war. They had attacked human colonies systematically, using overwhelming force to prevent any organized resistance. Billions of humans had died fighting a war they could not win. The restraints holding Jake to the examination table suddenly seemed fragile. His enhanced strength, fully activated for the first time in 3 centuries, it allowed him to snap the reinforced metal bonds like thin wire. The energy fields around the table shorted out as his modified nervous system generated electromagnetic pulses they could not contain. Dr. Vextar looked up from his damaged equipment to see Jake Morrison standing free in the middle of his laboratory. The human no longer appeared weak or confused. His eyes held the cold focus of a professional killer, and his body moved with predatory grace. "That is impossible," the doctor whispered. "Those restraints can hold a Kethver berserker." Jake tested his enhanced reflexes by catching a falling piece of metal debris without looking at it. His hand moved so fast it was almost invisible. "Doctor, you have been studying the wrong thing. You thought you were examining a museum piece. What you actually found was a weapon." Laboratory security systems activated automatically. Laser grids descended from the ceiling, creating a maze of deadly beams designed to contain or kill any escaped subject. Jake studied the pattern for exactly 3 seconds, then moved. He flowed through the laser grid like water, his enhanced perception allowing him to predict every beam's movement. His modified reflexes let him slip between energy pulses that moved at the speed of light. To the watching Zerothians, he seemed to teleport across the room. The laboratory's main door was locked down under emergency protocols. Jake examined it briefly, then struck it once with his fist. The reinforced metal crumpled like paper, leaving a hole large enough for him to walk through. Alarms were sounding throughout the facility now. Jake could hear running footsteps and shouted orders as security forces mobilized to deal with the emergency. He smiled slightly as he stepped into the corridor. The Zorthians were about to learn why humanity had once been feared across the galaxy, but first, he had questions that needed answers, and he knew exactly who could provide them. The first security team reached Laboratory 7 within minutes of the alarm. They found Dr. Vextar and his assistants cowering behind overturned tables while emergency systems fought the fires. Jake's escape had started. The massive hole in the laboratory's main door told them everything they needed to know about what they were dealing with. "Where is the human?" demanded squad leader Ziktar. "Its weapon already charged and ready." Dr. Vextar pointed toward the corridor with a shaking claw. "He went that way, but you do not understand. This is not an ordinary escaped prisoner. The human is something else." Entirely, Ziktar ignored the scientist's warnings. He had dealt with dangerous prisoners before. No single being could stand against a full security squad armed with military-grade weapons. He led his team down the corridor, following the trail of damaged equipment Jake had left behind. They found their quarry in the facility's central computer core. Jake Morrison stood calmly among the massive databanks, his hands pressed against an access panel. Streams of information flowed across nearby displays as he downloaded files directly into his enhanced memory. "Stop," Ziktar shouted, raising his plasma rifle. "Move away from the computers and surrender immediately." Jake turned to face them without removing his hands from the panel. "I am almost finished. Just give me another minute to learn about your final conquest plans. Surrender now, or we will fire." Jake's enhanced hearing had already analyzed their weapons. Plasma rifles, military grade, capable of burning through 6 inches of steel. Dangerous to normal humans, but his modified physiology could survive hits that would kill ordinary beings. More importantly, his reaction time was fast enough to avoid their shots entirely. "Fire away," he said simply. 6 plasma bolts screamed toward Jake at nearly the speed of light. He moved between them like a dancer, his enhanced reflexes making their attacks seem slow and clumsy. One bolt passed so close to his face that it singed his hair, but none found their target. Before the Zorathians could fire again, Jake was among them. His first punch sent Ziktar flying across the room, his armor crumpled and smoking. The second guard tried to bring his weapon to bear, but Jake moved behind him and struck the base of his skull with surgical precision. The alien collapsed instantly. Remaining 4 guards opened fire wildly, but Jake was no longer where they were aiming. He bounced off walls and ceiling, using the room's architecture to confuse their targeting systems. Within 30 seconds, all 6 guards lay unconscious or worse on the computer room floor. Jake returned to the data panel and finished his download. What he learned made his enhanced metabolism surge with controlled fury. The Zorathian files contained detailed records of their attacks on human colonies. They had not simply conquered human space, they had deliberately exterminated every man, woman, and child they could find. But more disturbing was the final conquest plan. The Zorathians intended to use planet-killer weapons to destroy any world. That showed signs of rebellion. The Extinction Protocol was not just a threat, it was already being prepared for activation. News of the incident spread through Zorathian command channels like wildfire. Within hours, reports reached the highest levels of the collective's military hierarchy. Supreme War Master Krextel read the initial reports 3 times before accepting them as true. "One human did this?" he asked Commander Vexfel, who had been summoned to explain how his prisoner had escaped. "Yes, Supreme War Master. The security recordings show capabilities far beyond anything in our databases. He moves faster than our targeting systems can track. His strength exceeds that of a Kethver warrior, and his intelligence." Dexville paused, still struggling to believe his own words. His intelligence. What? He downloaded our entire tactical database in less than 10 minutes. Files that would take our best analysts weeks to process. Krexthel's mandibles clicked together. In thought, the human represented a threat unlike anything the collective had faced before. If there were others like him hidden somewhere in the galaxy, the implications were terrifying. Deploy Hunter Squadron 7. Issue Shoot 2 kill orders. This human must not escape Corvax's Prime. But Jake Morrison was already gone. He had slipped out of the research facility using maintenance tunnels his enhanced senses had mapped during his brief captivity. Planet's industrial sector provided perfect cover for someone with his abilities. Over the next 48 hours, Jake began a campaign of systematic sabotage. His targets were carefully chosen, communication relays that connected Corvax's Prime to the rest of the collective. Military supply depots that supported the final conquest preparations, and transportation hubs that moved troops and equipment. Across the planet, each attack was swift and precise. Jake would appear without warning, destroy his target with devastating efficiency, and vanish before security forces could respond. The Zorathians found themselves fighting an enemy who seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. Fleet Admiral Zexkal arrived with the 3rd Battle Fleet to coordinate the manhunt. He deployed thousands of soldiers across the planet, turning every city into an armed camp. Orbital scanners searched for any sign of the escaped human while hunter-killer teams combed through every building and tunnel. "How can one being cause so much damage?" Zexkal demanded during a briefing with his senior officers. "He is using our own tactics against us," reported Intelligence Chief Ekmer. "Quick strikes, maximum damage, immediate withdrawal. But his execution is perfect. No wasted motion, no unnecessary casualties among civilians, just surgical destruction of military targets. What does he want? Unknown. But his target selection suggests he is trying to disrupt our final conquest preparations. Every facility he has destroyed was critical to the operation." As the search intensified, something unexpected began happening across Corvaxis. Prime, the enslaved species who worked in the collective's factories and mines, started to whisper among themselves. For the first time in generations, they had seen their oppressors afraid. A human had done this. One human had brought fear to the mighty Zerothian collective. On the third day, resistance cells that had been dormant for decades began to stir. Small acts of sabotage started occurring throughout the planet. Nothing dramatic, just enough to stretch security forces even thinner and create more chaos for Jake to hide within. Dr. Vexstar, now under house arrest for his failure to contain. His subject reviewed the medical scans he had taken of Jake Morrison. The answers were all there in the data. If only he had understood what he was looking at. Project Prometheus, he whispered to himself.
They did not create an enhanced human.
They created something designed to fight a war against impossible odds. The files Jake had stolen contained references to other Prometheus subjects. Hundreds of enhanced humans had been created during Earth's final years. Most had died fighting the Zerothian invasion, but the records were incomplete. Some might have escaped. Others could be in cryo-sleep on hidden ships scattered across the galaxy. Jake Morrison might not be the last of his kind. On the fourth night, Jake struck at the Planetary Defense Command Center. The facility controlled all of Corvaxis. Prime's orbital weapons and shield generators. His attack was his most daring yet, a direct assault on the most heavily defended target on the planet. He infiltrated the compound through the storm drainage system, merging inside the main reactor complex. Within minutes, he had sabotaged the primary power grid and sent the entire defense network offline. But this time, the Zorothians were ready for him. Fleet Admiral Zexkal had positioned his best troops around the facility, knowing it would be too tempting a target for the human to ignore. As Jake emerged from the reactor building, he found himself facing an entire battalion of Zerothian elite soldiers. The trap had been perfectly executed. With escape routes blocked and heavy weapons covering every angle, Admiral Zexkal stepped forward, confident that his superior numbers and firepower would finally end the threat. Surrender, human. You are outnumbered 500 to 1. Jake looked around at the assembled forces, calculating odds and possibilities with his enhanced tactical mind. Then he smiled, and for the first time, the Zoarthians saw something in his expression that chilled. Them to their cores, 500 to 1, Jake repeated softly. Almost fair odds. The real war was about to begin. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. When the smoke cleared, Jake Morrison stood alone among the wreckage of what had been the Zerothian collective's finest soldiers. Fleet Admiral Zexkal lay unconscious against a shattered wall, his armor cracked and his weapon destroyed. Jake had not killed them all. His enhanced combat protocols included rules about unnecessary casualties, even among enemies. But every soldier was either unconscious, wounded, or too terrified to continue fighting. The demonstration of power was complete. Word of the battle spread throughout the galaxy within hours. The images captured by security cameras showed something that many species had thought impossible: a single human defeating an entire battalion of Zorothian elite troops. For the first time in centuries, the collective's reputation for invincibility was shattered. Supreme War Master Krexthal received the reports in his fortress on the capital world of Zorathia. The implications were clear. If one human could cause this much damage, and if there were others like him hidden somewhere in the galaxy, the collective faced an existential threat. Activate the extinction protocol, he ordered his subordinates. Target every world where rebellion has been reported. We will burn the galaxy clean before we allow this human plague to spread. But Jake Morrison was no longer on Corvax's Prime. He had commandeered a fast courier ship during the chaos following his escape and was already traveling toward the capital. His enhanced mind had processed all the data he had stolen from the research facility, revealing the location of the Extinction Protocol's control center. The facility was buried deep beneath Zorathia's surface, protected by layers of armor and energy shields. It housed the master controls for planet-killer weapons hidden throughout the galaxy. With the touch of a button, the Zorathians could sterilize entire star systems and eliminate billions of lives. Jake's ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zorathia system. Immediately, hundreds of collective warships moved to intercept him The entire Imperial fleet had been called back to defend the capital world, creating the largest concentration of military power in galactic history. "Unknown vessel, you are entering restricted space," came the communication from the flagship. "Identify yourself immediately or be destroyed." Jake activated his ship's communication system. "This is Lieutenant Colonel Jake Morrison, Earth Defense Force. I am here to collect a debt that is 300 years overdue." Admiral Hexful, commanding the Imperial fleet, laughed at the human's audacity. "You are one ship against 1,000. Surrender now, and your death will be quick." Jake replied, "Withdraw your fleet, and I will make your defeat less humiliating." The first wave of Zorathian fighters launched immediately. 200 of the collective's most advanced combat ships screamed toward Jake's lone vessel, their weapons charged and ready. It should have been a massacre, lasting mere seconds. Instead, Jake's ship began to move in ways that defied everything the Zorathians understood about space combat. He had spent his travel time studying the courier vessel's systems and making modifications using techniques learned from 3 centuries of human military innovation. The ship twisted through the fighter formation like a serpent, its weapons striking with impossible precision. Jake's enhanced reflexes allowed him to process targeting data faster than any computer, while his tactical mind predicted enemy movements before they were made. Within minutes, half the fighter wing was floating debris. The capital ships opened fire, filling space with energy beams and missile salvos. Jake's ship danced between the attacks, sometimes missing destruction by mere meters. But he was not trying to win a space battle against impossible odds. He was buying time to reach the planet's surface. His ship's sensors had located the extinction protocol facility during his approach. Now he programmed the courier's autopilot to crash directly into the installation's main entrance. The ship's remaining fuel would provide enough explosive force to breach the facility's outer defenses. Jake sealed himself into an escape pod just before impact. The courier ship struck the facility like a meteor, its explosion lighting up the night sky of Zorathia's capital city. Alarms began sounding across the planet as emergency systems detected the attack on their most secret installation. Jake emerged from the wreckage of his pod to find himself in the middle of the extinction protocol complex. The facility was vast, stretching for kilometers in every direction. Massive computers controlled the galaxy-wide network of planet-killer weapons, while technicians monitored hundreds of target worlds. "Intruder alert!" shouted the facility's commander, as Jake appeared on internal security monitors. "Seal all access points. Deploy all security forces." But Jake was already moving deeper into the complex. His enhanced senses guided him through corridors filled with defensive systems and armed guards. Every obstacle was overcome with the same brutal efficiency he had shown on Corvax's Prime in the facility's central control room. Supreme War Master Krexal waited with his personal guard. The Zorathian leader had decided to face the human threat directly rather than flee like a coward. His elite bodyguards were the finest warriors the collective could produce, armed with weapons that could level city blocks. "So you are the last human," Krexal said as Jake entered the chamber. "You do not look like much." Jake studied the control room's layout, identifying the master terminals that controlled the extinction protocol. "I am not the last human. I'm just the first one you woke up? Impossible. We destroyed every human world. Your species is extinct. You destroyed the colonies you could find. But humans are good at hiding when they need to. We spread across the galaxy long before you found us. Some escaped your genocide. Others are sleeping in cryopods on hidden ships, and all of them are going to wake up very angry." The implications of Jake's words struck Krextal like physical blows. If humans had survived in significant numbers, if they possessed enhancement technology like this one, the collective's reign of terror was doomed. "Kill him," the Supreme War Master ordered. The battle in the control room was brief but decisive. Jake's enhanced abilities made him untouchable against conventional weapons. His tactical mind turned the room's own defenses against his enemies. Within minutes, the elite guards were defeated, and Krextal stood alone before the human who had destroyed his empire. He could not stop the protocol, the Zorathian leader said desperately. The weapons are already charging. Rebel worlds will burn within hours. Jake approached the master control console. His enhanced memory contained perfect records of every technical manual he had downloaded from the research facility. Understanding Zorothian technology was simple for a mind built to process information at superhuman speeds. "You are right," Jake said as his fingers moved across the control interface. "I cannot stop the protocol." Krextel's mandibles clicked in triumph, but his victory was short-lived. "But I can reprogram it," Jake continued. The control room's displays began showing new targeting data. Instead of rebel worlds, the extinction protocol was now locked onto every major Zorothian military installation in the galaxy. Fleet bases, weapons factories, command centers, all marked for destruction by their own ultimate weapon. No. Lunged toward the controls, but Jake caught him easily. "This is for Earth," Jake said quietly. "And for every species you enslaved?" The extinction protocol activated across the galaxy. A matter of hours, the Zorothian collective's military power was completely destroyed. Slave worlds watched in amazement as their oppressors' weapons turned against them, freeing entire civilizations in a single, coordinated strike. Jake stood in the ruins of the control room. As reports flooded in from across the galaxy, the collective was finished, its empire crumbling as liberated species reclaimed their freedom. But his mission was not complete. He activated the facility's communication system and broadcast on all frequencies throughout known space. His message was simple, but would reshape the galaxy's future. "This is Lieutenant Colonel Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. Any human receiving this transmission should know that you are not alone. We survived. We remember. And we will find each other again." Across the galaxy, in hidden colonies and drifting cryo ships, other humans began to wake up. The age of Zorothian domination was over. The age of human resurgence had begun. Jake looked out at the stars through the control room's shattered windows. Somewhere out there, his people were stirring to life after centuries of forced sleep. They would need guidance, protection, and leadership in the dangerous galaxy that awaited them. The last son of Earth had work to do.